Hey guys, this is Lauren House. I am the hostess of Beyond the House on the social Nostra network. And today I wanted to discuss self-love, working on yourself. What does it mean to work on yourself? What can you do to work on yourself? And the benefits of working on yourself and self-love. I know that for a very long time, the term working on myself was something that I threw around without much meaning. And over time, I finally realized what that meant, but I had to try a couple different routes to get there. So I wanted to start this off with a quote that I found that I really like, and I think that it will apply to why it's important to love yourself and to work on yourself, the self-development side of things. It's your taste in people will change when you learn to love yourself. And I don't know if anybody is in a position right now where they're kind of not stoked about the people in their life. I know I have been. I know that's a mirror that it's really hard to look in. But when you get through it and you meet your people who have so much more significance in your life in one day, in one conversation, than the crappy, toxic people brought to the table in years that you were friends with them, you just think to yourself, how did I go so long in such a weird state of mind and continuously allow people who I don't particularly care for to be in my life? And a lot of that boils down to self-respect and self-love. And today, I just want to go over 5 things that we can do to work on our self-love and to work on self-development, because I believe that every relationship needs a great foundation. And we're always so concerned about the relationship with our partners, with our business partners and colleagues, as well as our family members. But we don't stop to think about the foundation that we have to have with ourselves in order to create, manifest, and attract that incredible life that you want. So if you do take a look at your life, I know it's not easy sometimes, but if you do take a look at your life and you realize that you keep attracting the same type of person, like maybe this is a romantic person. I keep attracting the same type of guy or girl. Maybe I keep finding myself in the same situations. It's different characters in the story, but there are a lot of similarities in each story that I'm in. Why is that? And that's because you have a wound that you need to essentially heal, and we need to figure out what that is. And sometimes the transformation I went through, I couldn't really pinpoint what it was that healed, but I can tell you that after I took 6 months to focus on myself, my life really did change. And now I'm in such a better place and I love everyone in it. And I'm very selective about who gets into my life. So with that being said, number 1 is kind of a 3-in-1. It is to be honest with yourself, to learn to say no, to be okay to say no, as well as setting boundaries. And if you are any sort of people pleaser, I fully understand how difficult it is to set boundaries and learn to say no. And I start out with saying, be honest with yourself, because I believe that it is so easy to receive a text message, a phone call, an invite, something pops up and you just react to it. Rather, what you should do is take a moment to think about, is this something I want to do? Is this something I want to spend my money on? Is this a person I want to invest my time and energy on with, whichever it is? And when you take that step back, you slow down and you actually scan what it is that you want to do, you will have a different outcome, I think. And if you have the huevos to say no, or everything's very kindly, by the way, everything's very kind, I should say. We always want to make sure that we're kind, gracious, courteous, respectful, and you can say no in a way that encompasses all of those things. So when you are setting the boundaries and you're learning to say no, let's start with something small. I'm going to give a small example of a dinner invitation. So let's say that you've already made plans. It's Friday, you're zapped, you don't want to go. Maybe it's because you don't really want to go spend time with this person. Maybe it's because you genuinely had a really rough week and you just want the night off. Maybe you've been out to dinner for the last 13 nights in a row and you're tired of spending money on food. Whatever the reason is, even if it is simply, I just don't feel like doing that tonight, it's none of that is anyone's business. All you can do is honor yourself. And that is the first boundary, is taking a look inside, being honest with yourself about what you want to do, learning to say no to somebody else, and you just respected yourself and you just set a boundary. And it's not a forever boundary, it's just for the evening. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to say no. And I think that when you remember that, you will get a little bit further in life. So all you have to do is send a quick, kind text. Maybe it's a phone call in some cases, and just say, hey, I've had a really long week and I want to show up for you and I want to have fun with you. And I just don't feel like that's going to happen tonight. Can we reschedule for Wednesday? And the fact that you offered to reschedule goes to show that you're serious about your commitment. You're not flaking on them and you want to move forward. Today's just not going to work for me. And I can guarantee you the likelihood of the person on the other end honestly feeling the same way is probably very high. Because how many times has somebody reached out to you and said, hey, tonight's just not going to work, or I don't want to do this anymore, or whatever it is. And you're like, phew, I'm off the hook. I really didn't want to do that anyway. So think about both sides there, right? So I would just say start small. And if you don't have the huevos to fully say no and reschedule, then you can show up. And when you show up to the dinner, you say, you know what, I've had a really long week. I have like 60 to 90 minutes in me, and then I got to go. And you plant the seed. You kind of keep your eye on the clock. Maybe you set an alarm and you planted the seed. You told them up front where you're at with things, and there's nothing wrong with that. That way you don't feel like a total flake. You went to the dinner, you gave it your all while you were there. And then when you let them know that, hey, I'm out, you're respecting yourself. You gave them 60 to 90 minutes, more than enough time. So I know that's a very silly, surfacey, shallow example, but it's a good one to start with if setting boundaries is not your thing. And it really is just taking that extra moment to think about, is this something I want to do? Is this something that's going to serve me? And half the time you're going to realize how many things you say yes to that you just have no interest in being a part of. And that's okay. And this is going to lead me into the next item, which is putting effort into those who put an effort back into you. And I say this for multiple reasons. A, I'm the type of person that I cannot let a friendship or a business relationship or any relationship really just fail. I'm never the person to drop the ball. I probably should never say never. Does that make sense? But I try very hard to always make sure that I respond to people. I'm timely. If I can't make it, I let them know. If I can make it, I let them know. This is something that's very important to me. So I'm not encouraging or enabling or promoting that you are a counter, as I call it, which is the type of person who's like, well, I called him 5 times and he hasn't called me back. It's not what I mean. I just mean that if over a short-ish period of time, or in general, you just have these people who you think you're such great friends with, and they don't answer your phone calls, they don't call you back, maybe they only comment on your social media posts, or when you are on the phone with them, it's like, oh shit, I got to get this call, I'll call you right back, and then they never call you back. You kind of got to think about that. Okay, I know that you are in touch with your very tight-knit, close group of people, and I'm starting to see I'm not a part of that. And that's okay. You know what? You're going to out with the old and in with the new. And I say this because it is so important to pay attention to who you give your time and energy to. My best friend came to me around New Year's and said, hey, my New Year's resolution is going to be to stop putting effort into people who don't reciprocate. And I thought it was such a good idea because I've never really put that into words. It's just an action that I take. So to hear it out loud made me think about, wow, I really kind of do the same thing. I keep up with all my friendships for the most part. And I do have those friends who've said, I really just I don't do well with keeping in touch with people. And what can you do with that information? You say, okay, well, the ball's in my court. I'm going to be the one that's going to keep this friendship up. And maybe they have kids and maybe they travel a lot for work and maybe they just don't want to be friends with you. But until that is a topic of conversation, all you can do is keep up your end until you get burnt out and you feel like, okay, this is going nowhere. And it doesn't have to be a harsh, okay, I'm dropping you as a friend. It's not like that at all. It's a simple, silent maneuver where you just kind of stop giving somebody attention. Maybe they come around, maybe they don't. Maybe they're not like your tight knit group of people, but maybe they're like in an onion level, they're like a C friend, a C class friend, So I actually think this is a blessing in disguise. And I know it's probably hard. Like, I've been friends with this person since kindergarten. Well, if they're not giving you any information or any attention, why keep them around? So in the meantime, think about it like this. You are shedding those people who don't serve you, and you're shedding a layer that's going to allow you to grow and attract right people for you for where you are. Because I can promise you, and I say this from experience, when you transform into a different person, your friends change. And that's why I love this quote, because your taste in people will change when you learn to love yourself. And there's nothing more true, but there's no words to explain that feeling until you've actually experienced it. So the other thing you want to do is find people who feed your soul instead of feeding your ego. I've always had a lot of acquaintances my whole life, and it's all about, looks and let's go have fun. And we need to be the life of the party and all this stuff. And it's a blast. Don't get me wrong. And I love those friends because that is a part of me that I need to have served. However, as I get older and I realize like it's a very empty lifestyle to always be keeping up with the Joneses, I've really like my tight knit group of people is down to like 4 outside of my family. And sometimes I kind of panic. I'm like, God, I don't really have that many good friends. And it's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that because who I do have in my life, they are incredible. And I could not ask for better friends. They're there for me through thick and thin. And you will find those people who are on the same wavelength, who feed your soul and who you can have hard conversations with. You won't be judged because they love you for who you are. So with that being said, we're going to go to the next one. When you are working on yourself, that means that you need to find things that fill you. They fill your cup. What is that? Like, what does that even mean? And first and foremost, you have to get comfortable with being alone. You have to become your best friend. You are working on your relationship with yourself to build a very solid foundation. And I think the thing that most people are scared of is being alone. And it's not alone. I think it's like a dual meaning. I think it's alone physically, like sitting here in silence on the couch. You kind of feel like a loser. But if you're happy with yourself and like maybe you read a book, maybe you don't have to have music on when you're cleaning your house. You don't need the distraction of a cell phone, of a television. And all of those things are important. And learning to be alone and learning to enjoy your own company is really important. That's something my parents stressed to me a lot when I was little. My sister is really good at that. And I always tried to follow in her shoes. And it took me a very long time. It's like a whole family joke, really, that like I'm finally okay with like I don't have FOMO anymore. I can finally sit at home on a Friday or Saturday and not feel like a loser. And I enjoy myself sitting at home by myself, making dinner that I want and doing whatever I want. Those are the things that fuel me to recharge my battery so I can be the best version for my business, for my friends, for a significant other, for my family. And that's what you have to do is when you're finding out what makes you happy, whether it is sitting at home on a Saturday night, whether it's a new hobby, whether it's, I don't know, whatever it is, there's a million things that you can do to figure out what makes you happy. And the fun part is like trying different things. Like I went and took dance lessons for a little while and I walked into the studio. I didn't know a soul and I made my friends and we all had one thing in common is we were there to dance and we loved it. And it's a really cool feeling because it's a little scary to like walk in somewhere and I have no experience, at least professional experience, being taught how to dance. And I don't know, like I left there exhausted because it was a 4-hour thing that I decided to throw myself into. but it was the most fulfilling thing. And I went to bed, I'll never forget, with the biggest smile on my face because I found something that I loved. And I don't care that it was on a Saturday night. And I didn't care that it took up 4 hours of my Saturday night. It was something that made me really, really happy. And it took me a few things like, okay, well, what am I going to do? How are you going to get there? And maybe it's, listening to YouTube videos. How are you going to heal yourself? Is it journaling? Is it, I've gotten really into crystals and meditating. Maybe it's yoga. Maybe it's not a sport at all. Maybe it's going to sit in nature. Maybe whatever it is. There's obviously, like I said, there's a million things that can do this. So as you are building yourself, your foundation, the last two, in my opinion, are pretty powerful. The first one, so we're on number 4. This is to grieve what you need to grieve. And I say it slowly and I want it to sink in because this is by far the hardest part of self-love. It is learning to love yourself for every good and bad decision that you have made in your life. It is also forgiving yourself and forgiving those who have treated you poorly along the way, that maybe you hold some sort of grudge against. You feel that it's limited you, changed you. You feel defined by a person, a moment, an event. And what do? You mask it. You drink alcohol, you do your drugs. You're never in silence. I really think being in silence is such a massive part of self-love. You're always out with friends. You're always social. Whatever it is that you do to numb yourself, going on dates, constantly being in a relationship because you can't be alone. These are the items that will prevent you from loving yourself because you are just piling on thing after thing after thing so that you don't feel that feeling that you keep pressing down because you don't want to deal with it. And then all of a sudden, however many years later that is, you have to deal with it. It's going to ruin a relationship. It's going to ruin a job. You are going to spiral out of control in whatever way that looks like. And I know that sounds a little dramatic, but it's true because you haven't dealt with it, because you haven't stopped, you haven't paused, you haven't gone inside, you haven't cried. Whatever it is that you need to do to get through those hard moments, those hard looks in the mirror that no one wants to do, they're essential. They're essential, they are important, and they are significant if you want to be a better version of yourself. Self-development is not always easy. You can learn and read and do anything you can to be a better person, but it's the application that actually makes you the better person. So I just think that it takes such a strong individual to sit in silence with yourself and heal yourself. Heal all of your issues without bringing a single soul into the chaos. I really do. It's healthy to do this. It's not easy. It's hard, especially, if you're taught that crying is weak or feeling any sort of emotion is a weakness. It's not. You're human. You're not invincible. I mean, I know we think we are, but we're not. And the other quote that I found for this that I love, which is so true, because anyone who's ever hit rock bottom and has gone up knows that this is gold. Rock bottom will teach you what mountaintops never will. And I couldn't agree with this more, because when you go through a very tragic event and then you have to heal yourself from it, it's so easy to go straight to a therapist. Oh, I need to talk to somebody about everything. And sometimes that's not the route that the universe has in mind for you. Sometimes it's just taking the time to be by yourself, not relying on anyone, and doing what you want to do. That's part of the working on yourself. Let me work on myself. It's doing what you want to do. It's having no one to check in with. It's having freedom. And it's honoring and respecting and knowing that where you are at is not only where you're supposed to be, but where you want to be. You're choosing to be here. You are choosing to to like every decision you make is your choice. You're not forced or influenced by anyone or anything around you because you are only responsible for yourself. If you're single, you don't have a family, an immediate and a significant other and kids that are relying on you for things. You can do what you want. Like when I was single, I went to Machu Picchu on a whim. I got invited on Sunday, was asked to leave Monday. I did not. I left Wednesday, and it was the most liberating thing on the planet. And had I been in a relationship at the time, there was no way that would ever happen. It was with a guy friend. So on top of it, it's like, oh, well, what is that? And it was nothing. It was a guy friend who I've had for 10 years. He's like, House, let's go to Machu Picchu tomorrow. And I was like, dude, I'm not going tomorrow. And instantly that was my reaction. And those are the things that I look back on and I'm like, thank God I did that. Like, what a great experience to just pick up and go like that at the very last minute. Yes, it was with a friend and it wasn't something I did by myself necessarily, but I was in another country with someone I'd never traveled with before. And it was a freaking blast. We had so much fun. And I felt like I grew leaps and bounds that trip for multiple reasons. And it doesn't have to be some big extravagant trip that you go on, but it just is having the freedom to do whatever you want. And when you get to this point where so many things are making sense and where you're happy and every decision you make only leads to more happiness, the people you invite and allow to stay in your life only bring those good vibes that we all want and need. You become very selective about who you let into your life. And I'm very open. I give everybody a chance, whether it's dating, whether it's friends, whether it's colleagues. I give everybody a chance. It's probably like the people pleaser in me. But I quickly realize if they're my people or not. And I'm honest with myself about it, which I'm working on. It's not the easiest thing to be honest. Sometimes it's an obligation. But when you sit down in the silence, like I'm asking you to do, and you really think about what does this person not do for me, because I don't think that's the right word, but like, how do they contribute to my life? Is it a positive way? Is it a negative way? Is it nothing at all? Are they a wallflower? You have a good grip on, okay, this is going to be a good friendship, or this isn't going to really work for me. I'm going to keep them at bay. Like I'll see them once a quarter. And it is what it is. There's nothing wrong with that. You have all different levels of friends. Not everybody can be a best friend, and you need some best friends because not everybody can be an acquaintance, right? So yeah, being in a relationship with yourself is very hard. It's by far the hardest thing you have to do. And it's pretty cool when you have conversations with people down the road and they can acknowledge everything that you've been through and they voice how proud they are of you for all the work you've done. And they notice the changes and it makes you a better person. And like I said, you are literally leveling up. Everyone thinks that term's played out. I love that term because it's so true. You're leveling up and you're bringing new energy and new people and new experiences into your life once you've stopped being asleep and you've woken up and you are truly inviting so much more and so many better things and people into your life. So the last one I want to touch on is really for single people, or if you are maybe in a relationship and considering breaking up with someone. And it's being celibate and not having sex. Well, being celibate, and not dating. Obviously, not having sex is being celibate. So being celibate and not dating. And I say this because it's so easy to be a serial dater, whether you go on one date with someone or you go like 3 months at a time with somebody and you keep breaking up because you can't get past that 2, 3, 4 month mark. And I say this because it is so sad to me how sex has just become casual. Like it is the most casual thing on the planet. I mean, people have sex before they even hold hands. People have sex before they get to know anyone. And I know girls in my life who choose to kind of just sleep around. Guys do it too. And instead of, what's funny is like the not having sex actually creates the sexual attention, which is it's a flirt, it's fun. But people just think, or women mainly, I guess guys too, that if you just hop in the bed, like it's just going to make them like me. It's like every girl offers that. Every guy offers that. when you don't offer it, you're now the exception because you didn't offer that, if that makes any sense. And I think that the desensitization to sex has dummied sex down to it's just nothing special anymore. There's nothing intimate about it. It's like, hey, what's up? Want a bone? Like, really? Really? So my point to this is that when you take a break from going on dates and you are celibate, there's a whole newfound respect, not only for sex, but for your body. Because when you go for a certain amount of time without having sex, it's like, oh, I'm not going to put that in my body. Well, from a girl's point of view, maybe from a guy's point of view too. But it becomes like more special again. And you realize how important it is to wait. And I think that's something special to it. And I get it. Like, we all have to go be crazy from time to time and whatever. But at the end of the day, like, hopefully all of these other things that I've discussed are only compounded by a one-night stand. We'll just use that as an example. Because I know for me, going out to a club these days and drinking and being in that environment, it's really empty. And I would think that when you're after you've gotten to a certain point of being evolved, you end up feeling like anything like that is just empty. There's nothing to it. Like, do I even know your name? Did I get your phone number? I'm probably never going to see you again. Maybe you're doing the walk of shame, like whatever it is, all these things that contribute to what you thought was going to get you further with somebody. But instead you like want to go home and cry in your bed because that was just the dumbest mistake you could have made. And you feel even worse than you did because it kind of reopened a wound that, well, I had sex with this person and they didn't love me either. And that's obviously just an example, but the not having sex and not going on dates just makes you really appreciate the person who treats you well. And it makes you realize that sex should be important and it should be selective and it should be special with someone who cares about you. And it should not just be, a flip of the coin, like, all right, are we doing this or not? So these are just a few things that I have done to better myself, and I had great results with them. And I will say that when going on dates, it's a lot easier to walk away saying, do I want them to call me? Do I even like this guy? Whereas before it was like, oh my gosh, I hope he calls me. I hope he likes me. And it's like, why should I care? Like, what about my feelings? And again, it goes back to being honest with yourself. Like, you get so wrapped up in pleasing and wanting to be a part of other people's lives, you don't stop to think about yourself. And that's where the true queen comes in, is that she doesn't care what you thought of me on our date. I really don't care because I was busy judging you as well and deciding if you're going to be a good fit for me after all of the information that I collected. And it turns out it's not. Whether it is or it's not, it's a very powerful feeling to know that you are in charge of yourself and that you hold all of your cards. You're not giving them out in any way, shape, or form because people now have to earn them. And if you're not the type who makes people earn things, then we need to work on that, because that is with boundaries, and that is with when you set your boundaries and you love yourself, you teach people how to work, how to treat you. Not easy. And it is easy for some people, but for those of us who struggle with it, not easy. And you got to bite it off, in very small bites. It's not something you can just like walk into some big situation right now and just say, I'm going to change and this is what I'm going to do. Like, no, this is going to be a very long process, and it's going to be starting with very small situations and kind of testing yourself. And when you get to a point where you're feeling comfortable, get out of your comfort zone, try something new, challenge yourself. Don't let yourself plateau when you're trying to love yourself and create that foundation, because you always have more to learn about yourself and who you are and what you'll tolerate. Try using different words to get your point across, different attitudes, whatever it is that's going to work for you. There's so many things. There's so many more things that you can do. If on my Instagram, in my highlights, I actually have, 30 30. Self-love tips. I did a self-love challenge last year because I had some girlfriends going through some stuff, and I just wanted to throw it out there. And every day I posted a new way to practice your self-love. So if you ever want to go back and have a look at those, they're there for you. They are all recorded at Self-Love and Self-Love 2. And I'm always available to chit chat. I love talking about this stuff. I think it's so important, and I want to be of help if I can. So my Instagram is below. Feel free to message me and we can chit chat if you need to, but don't forget to put yourself first, respect yourself, love yourself, work on yourself. And I'm Lauren House. This is Beyond the House on the Social Nostra Network. Thank you.